Hello, how you doing and welcome back to the channel. Another roundup of the Gallagher Premiership, something I'm looking to do every couple of weeks on the channel. Those of you that watched the last video I did on this, I was talking about how it's quite hard to find a place on YouTube for coverage of domestic rugby because naturally it drops off massively in terms of views and in terms of engagement. So at the moment I'm kind of going with every few weeks, rounding up some kind of big talking points that I think are interesting for the different sides and different things in the division. And that's what I'm doing in this video. If you enjoy it, if you've clicked on it, and if you've got this far, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Massively appreciate that. Also, make sure you like the video and drop a comment down below. Let me know about any of the points that I talk about in this video, starting with the Newcastle Falcons. Now, you'd have seen it in the thumbnail. What is the point of Newcastle? That's a question that has been asked, I think, quite a lot over the last few days, following where they are in the Premiership. This is the Premiership table, and you look at Newcastle having played 8, lost 8, at the foot of it. This isn't a question about what is the point of Newcastle as a club. This isn't a question designed to question whether they should even be a club. The question is how competitive they are at the moment in this version of the Gallagher Premiership. So straight off the bat, let me say Newcastle are of vital importance to the Premiership, and in particular to English domestic rugby. Having a presence in the north of England, I think, is key for a sport that is so dominant in the southwest, in the south. Having both Sale and in particular Newcastle up there, they play such an important role that actually the reason for the question isn't meant in any sort of disrespectful way. The reason for the question is to look at it and say, how can we have as successful a Newcastle Falcons side as possible? And there is a reason that Newcastle find themselves where they are at the moment, and it's because they're trying to run themselves sustainably. Because there is no relegation in the Premiership, their owners, as I understand it, have made the decision to be run sustainably, give themselves a better chance of having a longer term future. But what that means for the here and now is they don't have a team that is particularly competitive in the Premiership. They have had a couple of tight losses in their defence. I think teams going up to Kingston Park will still be faced with quite a stiff challenge. But the reason that I think this question is being asked now is that defeat to Leicester on Sunday was so jarring, so one-sided. They didn't look like they had the players or the capabilities to really be able to deal with the power and skill that was coming at them from Leicester Tigers. So that's the reason I think that this is a question at the moment. So as I say, because of relegation, Newcastle are able to run this way. If there was promotion relegation, then they probably wouldn't, because they'd almost be guaranteed to be relegated. But then this brings us into the discussion of promotion and relegation in the Premiership. Because let me ask you this, and many of you will be watching this and will be saying there should be promotion relegation from the Premiership, and I understand those arguments. I would like to see promotion and relegation return, but on the flip side of that, what would be the point in relegating Newcastle? What would it achieve for the weakest team in the division in terms of resources and in terms of personnel at the moment to be relegated, to be hampered for another year? Then presumably they'd come back up with promotion and they'd probably be in a similar or worse place than where they had been previously, having had those resources, the Premiership resources, the Premiership playing time taken away from them. And I think this gets to the heart of a lot of issues and problems in English rugby, in that we want promotion relegation because it makes the Premiership better, it seems fairer to teams that want to come up from the Championship, but we don't have a strong enough pyramid for those teams to come up, really. I mean, let's say, I know Jersey have gone out of business, but let's say it's a Jersey or a Doncaster or whoever it might be that comes up into the Premiership. Are they going to be that better off? Are they just going to go straight back down? Do we have the competitiveness, the resources, the pyramid structure there actually for that to be able to work? So I don't know. It's a question. You can give me your answer in the comments. And then the final point on Newcastle, a lot of people have been saying, well, the RFU should step in and fund them. Almost like that American sports model where the team that is the weakest, the team at the bottom, gets the most resources to try and make them better. It happens in a lot of Australian sports as well, in their rugby league, in their AFL, Aussie rules. The weakest teams often get more draft picks, they get more resources, they maybe get more cap space, whatever it might be, to help them become more competitive. Why can't the RFU do that? Well, first of all, there's absolutely no precedent for the RFU to do that. Look at the 4 clubs that have gone bust: London Irish, Wasps, Worcester and Jersey. The RFU didn't step in and help them there. And if they were to step in and start helping Newcastle or Sale, people have mentioned it as a northern rugby thing as well to make rugby in the north stronger. If they were to do that, what would London Irish say? What would Wasps say? What would the owners at Leicester, who've had to pump in a whole load more money, say? Or Tony Rowe at Exeter, who's had to sell his business assets to be able to fund the club? I don't think it's as simple as just saying the RFU needs to step in and fund them. It is a complicated issue. Newcastle, as I say, just to reiterate, vitally important. Great place, by the way. I love going up to Newcastle and covering matches. The stadium isn't the best, but actually you can get to it pretty easily from the city centre. Newcastle as an away day is as good an away day, I think, as you can have, really, in the Gallagher Premiership. If you're talking about a nightlife, you're talking about a city to be in, it's awesome. So they are really, really important, but where they are right now, just in a competitive point of view, hasn't looked too great. I've spoken on that for quite a while because I think it's quite a meaty topic and I'm sure many of you will have an opinion on it, so drop it in the comments down below. Let me rattle through some of the other things I wanted to say. First of all, Sale. Top of the Premiership, but their defeats are what will concern them. I really like this Sale team. I love the combination they have of some quality international stars, and then they've got a real, almost northern identity with some of the young players coming through into that team. Gus Ward, Joe Carpenter, Aaron Reed, Tom Roebuck. I think they've done a great job of bringing those players into the side. I really like them as a team. I would love to see them go a step further than they did last year, where they lost in the Premiership final. But how concerning are their two defeats? So they lost, 39-3, 36-3 to Sale last Friday. Their other defeat was getting absolutely pumped against Exeter away from home. It's not the fact they've lost 2 games. The Premiership is always going to be competitive enough that on any weekend you could end up losing, even to potentially the bottom team. Newcastle, I think, will get a victory, most likely at some point. My point is the manner of it, getting absolutely blown away. When it's that sort of scoreline, you get completely beaten up physically, which is something that Sale don't tend to happen to them. And I don't know, it talks to, maybe if they're just off it that slight amount, then they can be beaten quite comfortably. That maybe would be the concern at the moment for Sale. I still think they'll be top 4. I still think they'll probably get a home semi-final. And I also think teams having to go up to the AJ Bell to try and beat them in a semi-final means they're going to have a great shot at getting back to the final. But Sale fans, let me know how much of a concern are just the manner of those defeats for you. Talking of a team who are frankly in a bit of a spiral, Gloucester. So their CEO released an open letter on Sunday giving the backing to the players, to George Skivington and the coaches to turn their fortunes around, but they are on a horrible run of form and were awful in defeat to Bristol, one of their West Country rivals. That first half was a shocker from a Gloucester perspective. It looks like as they go behind, they lose all sort of confidence. So where's the progress for Gloucester, I suppose, is the big question, because it's not just this season. It's looking back to last season as well, when they were in a good position to get in the top 4 and their form dropped away. Awful at the back end of last year, really poor at the start of this season. I really like George Skivington and Don Waldock and those coaches. I want to see them succeed. And I want to see young English coaches succeed as well. I don't necessarily think there would be the benefit in getting rid of them at this moment in time, but I think the questions from Gloucester supporters of where's the progress, where are we going, what are we doing, are absolutely legitimate and completely fair questions to ask. I hope Gloucester are able to turn it around, but when you look at the Premiership this year, 10 teams, so you've lost a heap of fixtures, a much shorter division. We're already almost at the halfway stage. We've had 8 rounds played. So after the next one, we'll be at the halfway stage of the season. Someone's got to finish 9th, 8th, 7th. And all it takes is a little slip in form like this, and that's going to be your club. So Gloucester down there at the moment. We'll see if they can turn it around. Maybe Europe's come at a good time for them. A change of focus, a change of scenery, and maybe they can get back onto the Premiership when it comes around again. Let me know. Final team I wanted to mention was Northampton, because they beat Saracens at the weekend at the Stonex. Not many teams go to Saracens and win away from home, and I think it's particularly important for Northampton, given the fact that we've often seen Northampton get themselves to a Premiership semi-final. We see them play some brilliant attacking rugby throughout the year. They get to a semi-final, they go away from home, like they did last year against Saracens, and they get pumped. They don't have the forward pack to deal with it. They don't have the resilient defence to put up a meaningful fight. But they had those two things in this game. And I know Saracens were missing players. Owen Farrell wasn't playing. Ben Earl's injured, etc. at the moment. But I think it was a big psychological win for the Northampton Saints. Because of that reason, because it's Saracens, because it's away from home, because that is exactly the sort of game they can now look at when it comes to the end of the season, presuming they're in the top 4. If they have a semi-final away from home, they can point towards that and say, boys, we're capable. We have what it takes to be able to win against a really good opposition away from home. When we're on the road, we now are a better team, a more well-rounded team to be able to get the job done. So that's why I think it's a significant victory for the Northampton Saints. Final thing I'll mention on the Premiership, plenty I've tried to get through in this video, the competitive outlook of the league. The Premiership is not the highest quality league at the moment. I think we will see some English clubs frankly get it handed to them in Europe over the coming couple of weekends, because I think the standard in the top 14 and the standard at the top half of the URC is so much stronger than the Premiership. But it is competitive. Look at that league table. Look at Sale and Bath locked on the top on 27, and then even below that, it's just a few points separating those other teams. It is a competitive league. It will be fascinating to see what the run-in looks like. I still have Sale and Saracens, I think, as my 2 best teams at this moment in time. I'm expecting them to finish first and second. Is it then going to be a bum fight for who gets the 3rd and 4th, the other spots in the playoffs? Let's hope it's a brilliant season. I'm actually really enjoying the Premiership. I feared after the World Cup, I'd come back from the World Cup, and when you've been at a World Cup final and you've been consuming knockout rugby at an international level, it would be hard to come back into the domestic game. But actually, I'll be honest, I'm loving it. I've really enjoyed the last couple of weekends and everything I'm seeing, the competitiveness of the Premiership. I don't think the standard's great, but if it means we've got a competitive league, then on a week-to-week basis, I don't think that's a huge issue. Maybe when it comes to preparing players for international rugby, it might be, and there's probably a video for me to do on that separately. But that's my general thoughts. What's the point of Newcastle, Sale, Gloucester, Northampton, the competitiveness of the league? The comment section is where you can let me know. Make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.